Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
It's very early, you can see. So we're Foxdog Studios. I'm Peter, and that's Lloyd over there. And we're from Manchester in England, and Foxdog Studios, which is the name of our comedy act stroke company, originally started out as just an IT consultancy doing programming when we left university in, when did we leave? 2012.
12, yeah.
And then over time we've gradually transitioned to just making invoicing systems for companies, to making comedy stage shows. And we're here performing our show Robot Chef in the patio, and we've got 2 more performances on Saturday.
Yeah. Did anyone come to a performance yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay. There's going to be we're going to do a bit of a demo of what goes on in the show to give you guys a clear idea. So we combine programming and a live stage show with comedy and music, so it should give you, if you haven't seen it, it'll give you a taste, and then we'll do a little bit of history of how we got to being in this sort of programming and entertainment industry. I don't know. There's just us in it at the moment, so it's just one person.
And there's one slide which is about the system architecture, which is incredibly boring unless you are a software engineer, but it has to be in there because otherwise I have to endlessly explain every single piece of software we're using over and over and over again individually.
And then we'll be finally doing a behind the scenes of the making of the Robot Chef.
So that's what we're going to do, and we're starting with the game.
Yeah.
So we're going to start. What the novelty of our show is always audience interaction that we do through their smartphones. So for those of you who haven't been to our show, we're going to do a quick demo of that. So what you need to do is get your smartphone from your pocket or a bag and connect it to the wireless network FDS New, or if your phone is old, connect it to FDS Old. You will know if your phone is old because it won't be able to connect to FDS New. Then open your device's browser, Chrome or Safari,
It's written there.
and go to
Rashum.
fds.com. And you should see a black web page with the words Foxdog Studios written in the center. I can already see that we've got 19 people connected. If once you go to fds.com, you see Macy's Incorporated homepage, what you need to do is disable your mobile data and then refresh your browser. The issue is, on the real internet outside of this room, fds.com is owned by Macy's Incorporated because they used to be called Federated Department Stores, and they will not sell us the URL. And that should get you onto this screen. Does anyone have this web page? Yeah, there we go. Well done. Okay. And one final thing that always crops up, if anyone has any security concerns, we do not possess the ability to get anything of any interest off your device. You are completely safe connecting to our wireless network.
Okay. If you look at your phones, you should see in a second a white screen in 1 second. A white screen with a character in the middle. Okay, we're going to start. This is a game which is going to train you on the skills that you need to have in order to be a computer consultant. The character you've got on your screen has a shape and a color, and we'd like you to find the character of the same shape and color on the large screen behind us. To help you find your character, you've got the row number that your character is on written on your phone, and those are the numbers in gray down the middle of the screen. The character you've been given represents you as a computer consultant, and this on here is our virtual office space. You've got 2 buttons on your phone, left and right arrow, and by tapping those you can move yourself around the screen. Yeah, take some time now to familiarize yourself with your surroundings. Stretch out. Okay, that's enough mingling with each other.
We'll give you about
There's
20
still
seconds.
some time to connect to the Wi-Fi. Okay, we're going to have to get on with the training, as it will highlight one of the key dangers of working in the IT industry, and that is the threat of zeros falling down from the sky and hitting you on the head. So the aim of this game will be to move left and right to avoid the zeros.
Just to recap, if you missed Lloyd say it then, the aim of the exercise is to avoid the zeros, and if you missed both of us say it, you can read it at the top of the screen there, where it is also outlined in foot-high letters. I'm just going to play some backing music to make the whole game seem more intense, and then we'll get underway. Okay, this music was created by our sound engineer, Alex. Okay,
we're starting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here come the first zeros now.
I'm just going to run this.
Okay, 7's got hit. We've got 23 people at the moment.
Avoid, do not collect.
Do not collect.
Some people seem to be collecting.
Okay, we're having a little break at the moment as we go through a tunnel of zeros. Time to relax.
Move there, Zed.
Okay, now it's kicking off again. Here comes some more. We've got 3 lives before the end. Okay, we're down to 17. We filtered out the weak. Alright, it's kicking off again. Here we go. Okay, the workforce has been split into 2 groups. With 12 people left at the moment. Down to 8. 6, 5. 3 left. We've got the number 7, U, and D. Will anyone beat the high score of 1,100 this morning? Oh, it's just you by themselves. Oh. Where's you? Give him a round of applause.
So this game was one of the very first sort of interactive games that we made, probably the first time back in like 2013. And when we did our very first gigs, when I say gigs, we used like open. Do you guys know what an open mic is? Like anyone can turn up, you do 3 songs. We used to take our tech that we'd made and go to Alex's open mic, and you were the sound engineer there, and we would get about 2 or 3 people to play this at any one time. And then when we did our first proper shows and we got audiences of, well, 10, it all ground to a halt and broke, because it wasn't built just to even scale up to 10 individual players. And most of the sort of technical things that we've done since then has been making these sort of games scale up to hundreds of players. I think this version we did with 250 people playing at once. At the group therapy gig. It's chaos. The game doesn't. There's too many people at 250, but it was a great technical achievement.
Yeah. So
that's not one.
Looking at what we did there, we have this screen at the beginning, just trying to break down. In order to get people to connect to the Wi-Fi, we make our Wi-Fi with no password. We try and make it as easy as possible. I mean, it's up to you whether you found that easy or not, but it's quite a technical process. And then we try and name our Wi-Fis with an underscore at the top, so they appear first. And then with the URL, we try and make it a .com, even though we don't actually own fds.com. There aren't any 3-letter URLs that are any cheap anymore.
We used to use foxdogstudios.com, but that was too long for people to type and they used to get it wrong. We
can't even spell it right sometimes.
we do own FDS.im, but no one knows does anyone know what country .im is for? No, it's for the Isle of Man. Does anybody know where the Isle of Man is? Exactly. It's
Pete used to live there.
I used to live there until I left. So we have to use .com because what we've found is, in terms of user experience, is even if you put something else here like .co.uk, people will just write .com. They'll just panic and write the wrong address. So we have to use fds.com, and then we use a special trick on the router, which is there, that's what you're all connected to make fds.com point to my laptop. And after getting to this stage so that we could get people to connect easily, it took us about 3 years.
Yeah, it was normally we would just announce it mid-show and then only 2 people would actually connect because a lot of them thought we were joking.
Yeah, and we used to have like joke names for the wireless networks, but that only led to confusion.
Don't put the jokes in the wireless network, put them in the actual show.
That's our top advice. So we'll crack on. So that's a little flavour of the sort of things that goes on in our show. And the Robot Chef has just been an extension of that, but only using hardware as well as just software games. Is it the history?
Yeah. This is the second show we ever did at an open mic, and you can see this was using this was a game where people would text in on their mobile phones. Not everyone had a smartphone, so they would text in lyrics, and then it would sing back to them the lyrics they texted in using text-to-speech. And we just posted our number up there. On the other side here, where the audience is, there's probably about 3 people. That's when we found out that when we tested it at home, where we would just text it in and it seemed to work, when more than 3 or 4 people texted in at once, relying on the mobile phone, the cellular network, meant that the text messages didn't come in immediately, and we were just standing on stage.
What would happen is the mobile phone provider would think it was weird, like a security thing, like why are 100 people texting one number instantly? So the first time we had a large audience for this activity, we got no texts through. We just thought no one in the audience was engaging.
No one ever texted me apart from my mum, so I was very confused.
But then about 12 hours later, at exactly midnight, all the texts came through at once, and you received 100 text messages at once. And it was at that point that we stopped using like cell phones and we started bringing our own wireless network to every gig.
You can see here, this is the minimal setup where we brought our own laptop there. That's the projector we've brought with us. This is like a blind for a window that we put on a mic stand.
We made a custom bracket that would allow us to attach a roller blind to any mic stand, which was a great asset in the early days.
And this box here, this is our old router, this is our internet. So the worst thing you can do is take the internet out of your house, and when you get home you just want to check your Wi-Fi, but you have to plug it all back in again.
We still haven't solved that problem. And go back that slide. And the last point is, we don't really need the year at the top of these pictures. You can tell how old they are by how much hair we've got in each of the pictures.
So once we started doing those shows and there were small crowds, and we built up enough little things together, and we put it together in an hour-long show that we did at the Edinburgh Fringe, which is like a comedy festival in Scotland where people do shows for 25 days in a row. And we'd done probably 3 shows before then, so it was difficult, but a lot of fun for us to be outside the house.
And this poster highlights one of the very first theatrical techniques we ever developed. Because we played in a lot of venues where everyone was sat at the same level, if you were to do anything that was sort of from here down, no one would be able to see it. So you got to make sure everything happens up high. And the best technique we ever developed for that was to mount everything to a bicycle helmet, because that meant that it would be at least 6 feet in the air. And this here is our version of Google Glass. If you guys know what that is, like the one where they had the camera mounted in your glasses. Lloyd could strap his phone to the edge of that plank of wood, and then we could use the camera to film our face. It was a very early version of Snapchat.
Yeah, we didn't really know. I mean, we still the bicycle helmet was our go-to in order to try and put something on the head stably, but because it was so long at the front, it would tilt forward, and then every time we finished a show, we had big red marks on our foreheads.
It would also choke you for the whole show as well. This was a terrible design.
A year later, so once we did that, we started getting a bit more popular, and people would ask us to play, not just in Manchester. We went around the UK, and we had to take our equipment. This is actually in this show, Pete, you had your original musical suit, yeah.
For everyone who saw has already seen the show, the musical suits that we wear, this is the very first version of it. This one was particularly susceptible. If anyone saw the second show we did yesterday, and I had the issue where I'd sweated through the shirt, so I was accidentally triggering the buttons. That was very prone to this, because this one just had really small bits of sharp chicken wire on the edge of it that would stab into our hands.
And it was in a cardboard box. It was not strong. And we didn't have a car, so we'd be on public transport, having to carry the stuff. The helmets were easiest carried on the head. This wasn't fun.
This was this was before we had a car. This was very painful, moving the equipment around like this, and it took a long time, and it resulted in a lot of equipment getting damaged.
We also had other modes of transport for our equipment.
2 kids' bike trailers full of equipment. The advantage of this mode of transport of going to a gig is that you could have a drink afterwards and cycle back. So that's still what this mode of transport has got over all others.
And then in 2016 we did another show, and this one we tried again to build a new piece of hardware. And this one's got it's a helmet that Pete put on his head with a camera pointing at his eyeball and at his mouth, and then displayed on a screen.
But the only way, because we needed the frame rate to be really high, to be really fast, that means you have to use a very fast exposure on the camera, which means it has to be really bright. So the only way to get this to work was to put lots and lots of super bright torches pointing directly at my eye, mounted inside of this box. So you can see there's one sticking out there, which is going straight into my eyeball. And the main issue with this show is that I would have temporary blindness after every show in this one eye. But apart from that, I loved being in that box the whole time for an hour every night.
And then things were going on. Once we did this show, our careers were going pretty well. People were interested in us being comedians and doing this on stage. So we thought that was a bit too much. So we spent a year instead working on just normal IT, doing a project for Pete's dad's factory, where we had to make a program in DOS.
Does anybody remember DOS? Does anybody remember DBase 4?
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't, no one should.
No.
Does anyone know Microsoft Access? This was like before Microsoft Access.
Yeah. This is basically, because it was, we've been doing odd jobs for Pete's dad before for a couple of years, and then we finally had to we were sick of them calling us up and saying that they needed help with it. So we said we're just going to finish it all, and we took a sabbatical to just work on this.
So we did that for an entire year, and then after that, as a reward for ourselves, we decided to build our latest show, which is this. And as you can see, Lloyd got better at making posters as the years went on. This is definitely the best quality poster that you've produced, I think.
And we got a little trailer of the show to give you an idea of what the content is.
You want to
I'm
press?
just drawing on it. There we go.
Let's go play from halfway through.
Here we go. I'm gonna hit F5.
Do you want me to control? Come here, Lloyd.
That's because I ran out of internet.
Maybe you should connect to the old one.
So this is a quick trailer for our current show for those of you who haven't seen it.
Yeah, so they draw a picture and you control characters in it.
This is all footage from the Edinburgh Fringe show that we just completed. See there, another thing mounted on a hat, and that's the original sausage catcher for anyone interested. And that's that. So that should give you an idea, if you haven't seen the show, about what's in it. And we're now going to go through some specifics of how we built some of the things in it and some of the design decisions. So go back a slide, Lloyd. So this next slide shows the original inspiration for why we decided to build a robot chef. You know, if your laptop gets full of dust, you can buy like a can of compressed air to spray out the dust. I'll take that as a silent yes. We decided that we didn't want just a can, so we bought a compressor, an 8-bar compressor, which is quite a lot. And then we were having a barbecue, and we thought, what happens if you blow it into there?
Because we were tired of watching it.
Yeah. So we blew, and we saw it was quite effective at keeping the coals going. And then we thought, well, could we build a robot to pull the air compressor automatically?
Yeah, and to also be able to move the food. And would it be fun if the audience could control it? And we thought the best way, like when you're pressing the buttons on your phone, we want to make sure that every audience member, when they press it, they feel like it's not just, you know, if they were part of a larger system, say it was like voting or something, you wouldn't know if when you pressed the button you had an effect. So we wanted to make sure it was clear that when they did something, they were the one doing it. So we thought we could do it via augmented reality and like an overlay where they would see themselves on the screen. So we started off, this is like our first prototype augmented reality thing, where we had them being able to control a cube in a browser, because everything we do renders in the browser.
So this is what the webcam's actually seeing, and then this software here is doing the augmented reality or AR, which is detecting this marker. It's called is that a Heroku marker?
I think that one's a Heroku, but it's the idea.
A marker, and then it works. The software works out the geometry, sort of the plane that this is sitting on. And once we have that, we can then take it over to here, put that webcam into the browser, and then over the top of that render a virtual world, which makes it augmented reality. And this is Lloyd's wallet, it's just showing off there.
Full of receipts. And then because we're trying to pretend that there's no big marker there, we cover it up with a white square. That's my little trick. And then what we thought then was that it was fun to move that about, but it was be a lot more fun if we could make it fall off the table. So this was starting to give us ideas about how an audience could interact via augmented reality and have fun.
But there's one big issue with this current bit of software that we were using to do the augmented reality. If you see here, this is Linux's version of Task Manager, and this is the CPU usage, and it's all 100%. So it's setting Lloyd's laptop on fire with the amount of work it's doing. And using this system, there's no power left to like render the world or run a game engine.
Yeah, so in the end we changed to a different system. So the first thing we wanted to do when it came to cooking was heat up the food. And to do that, we wanted to use taking a barbecue into different venues was a bit problematic because of the smoke. So we had to make the scope a little bit smaller, and we decided to use like a camping stove. And we could have used an electric hob because we wanted to control it via electronics. So you could use an electric stove, and that'd be easier. But we wanted it to be exciting. So
it wouldn't really be very exciting just to control the electric hob.
They take a long time to turn on.
It'd be straightforward as well. You just turn on a plug, it would heat up and cook the food. As we were selecting each of the different control mechanisms, in order to make the show entertaining, we tried to make it so that it was a stupid way of moving it about. Because if you wanted to make a sensible robot to cook a meal, you just build what they have in food factories. It's already a solved problem. So that's why we went with electric, with a gas camping stove and magnets, both of which are terrible items to use to build a robot. The magnetism is incredibly weak, and fire is incredibly difficult to light, and then once it's lit, it's hard to put it out.
So we started off, we found a camping stove left behind by the previous people who lived in our house, and it was pretty filthy. We cleaned it, and the mechanism to light these hobs, you need to turn on the gas and you need to click it at the end, which is kind of hard to get a robot to do. That clicking thing is simple for us, but to make it do it automatically was difficult.
It requires quite a large amount of force. One thing that we discovered whilst building this is that humans are actually quite strong compared to most robotic components that you get off the shelf in your hobby electronics shop. So actually doing the click to flick the piezo sparker wasn't really a viable option.
So we wanted to instead turn it with a motor, which you can see here, attached to a chain, which would then turn it, and then we would use like a sparker in order, like a taser, in order to create the spark, which would ignite the gas. So we started off with like a little toy one. This was the first thing we ever really made properly. We tried to make it not break or not make it out of cardboard, otherwise it would set on fire. So
go back one slide. This was so early on. We had so few tools whilst we were building this that we didn't really have a workbench. So we just used a broken paving slab from the garden to cut and drill everything onto, and we used to just hope that we wouldn't miss and then drill into the floor, which we have done on a number of occasions, but we don't know how to explain it to our landlord. So we've just sort of covered those bits up.
Yeah, and then we bought a 3D printer, and it was a lot easier. Things stopped breaking so much. And the main thing we bought it for was to design our own bits, which would allow us to combine different things we found around the house and stick them together. So we would design this part here, went on the gas knob itself, so this would rotate and then be able to turn on the gas when it was connected to the motor by the chain.
This part here fits directly onto the gas regulator, and we were actually really surprised by how good the 3D printer worked, because the teeth on the inside of that they're like 0.2 millimeters wide, and it printed it perfectly fine. And we haven't got a good printer, we got the cheapest one that we could find really. And then this bit here interfaces with the chain that goes onto the motor, and finally these two pegs trigger two micro switches that decide when it's on or off. But one thing we discovered quite early on is you have to make sure those micro switches are actually plugged in, because if they're not, it doesn't work. And what happens is the motor that we used was really powerful, and it would just keep turning and then rip the whole thing apart.
So this is like an early demo of it happening, where we're trying to turn, you see we've got the 3D printed parts, we're trying to turn the gas on with the chain. I think we've got the sparker there, the little taser that we bought, and the circuit board. And we've got these cubes, which are supposed to, you jump on the red ones and then it activates the things inside in the real world.
Go back a slide. One other interesting thing is how many of you are programmers in the audience? Anyone done any programming? Okay, so one of the things that you might have run across is if you want to send synchronized data to the browser, like we want to send the video feed, but we also need to send the position of these markers so that we can correctly render the world on top. And And we spent ages trying to do like official ways of transferring the data. So we were trying to use a real-time data stream to synchronize with the video, and it would never work. And then eventually, there's a website for programmers called Stack Overflow, which is normally where you go when you just start out and you get like a terrible answer, but you can just copy and paste it in. And one of the comments for this, a similar problem, says, why don't you just put a barcode in the image? Which is exactly what we're doing. That strip along the top there is a barcode that encodes the position of the 3D world. So every time we get a new frame into the browser, we read that barcode from the top. And we thought like it might not work because it might not survive like video compression, but we've never had any issues with it. In fact, in the real show, if you look, at the moment we're using quite a wide barcode so that we can see it, but in the show it's just a 1 pixel at the top. And if you see the show, you can just see it flickering at the top.
This is the first time we're trying to get the sparker working, and you can see it's quite angry there. This is like the first board that we made. It's just a bunch of wires here. Later it looks a bit less like a bunch of wires. And the problem here was that we were using a Bluetooth module, and that's like wireless, and the sparker itself, it generates electromagnetic waves, like noise, which then blacked out, basically stopped the Bluetooth working, and it was stuck on.
So the Bluetooth chip would receive the signal telling it to turn the sparker on. The sparker would be running continually, and there'd be no way of telling it to turn off, which was terrifying. This sparker, it says in the product description, do not use as taser. But I don't know why else you would ever buy. Well, maybe you wanted to ignite a hob. This is the power supply. It's drawing 1.7 amps, which is quite a lot. It would really hurt if you touched it. So the advice is don't touch the spark. And at the moment, we've just got it arcing across this gap here. And if you play the audio, that weird sound you can hear is the electromagnetic interference that's been emitted by the sparks, also interfering with the speaker on the with the microphone on the camera. Okay,
this is your boring slide you were promising everyone.
It's time for the boring slide. I'll make it as quick as possible. We've got 3 people who've done programming in, so I'll make this brief. Everything inside this box is running on that laptop. We use Arch Linux as our operating system. Then we use a couple of system services, X for graphical interfaces, Qtile, which is a window manager that makes sure all your windows are in nice squares. So you know on Windows or Mac where you have to drag stuff around, you don't have to drag stuff around, they automatically go into a grid. And we manage our audio with Pulse Audio, and we use that for managing the audio that comes out of Chrome and other consumer applications. And then finally Jack 2 for real-time audio, for synthesis from synthesizers and drum machines. Finally, when you connect your phone to our computer, you're really connecting to a web server called Nginx, and then Nginx forwards those connections on to Node inside. But one of the most interesting thing that we've probably built in terms of like systems utilities is a library called Rigs. Every time we went on stage and something would go wrong, like we'd forget to plug the projector in, or we wouldn't have plugged a USB cable in, or we wouldn't have turned something on, or the audio was wrong, or any number of thousands and thousands of different things, we would write a little program that would automatically check it, which has become this huge library of stuff, which basically, without this, we wouldn't be able to do it. So this is using our library to start the main show. Like we check that we're on the right desktop. We also do a check where we found that if you leave your computer on for a long time, things just generally go wrong. So we have a check-in that just makes sure all this stuff is done. I'll move on. But you can see we've got hundreds and hundreds of checks. We used to do all this manually, and we used to forget a lot of it. And it helps the gigs run smoothly. That's enough of that slide.
Okay, we're running out of time, so we've got the Sky Crane, which is a magnet, which we lift the panel magnetically. We were inspired from a previous bit of work we did where we had to ring a bell using a magnet. Again, we stick things on our head. I think that's covered that part. The Sky Tractor was, this is a previous version when it was much, much larger, the whole thing. We built a little car out of, originally, Connects. So that's the flame there.
Yeah, keep it coming.
And it was huge. I don't know why
It's
we
too
built
big. I
it.
don't know why we built it that big. Anyway, it's smaller now. That covers that bit.
Yeah. And this is the sausage cannon.
Close up, taking a nice light.
And then we've got some sausage cannon highlights here from when we were testing it. So it's an air compressor connected to a tube that's designed to shoot hot dogs. We 3D printed it exactly to match up with the hot dogs. Here's us trying to launch it into the pan. It gave us great pleasure. That's a very early version. Here we're trying to see if it always fires in the same spot. This is the happiest we've ever been.
And I think that's a sensible place to stop on the talk. I hope that's given you some insight. We're doing 2 more shows. Go to the last slide.
I wanted to end it on the
Last slide.
Okay.
We've got 2 shows here. That's the end. Bye.